classes twice a year moving forward. So we'll do them in November and February every year. So hopefully we can get the attendance up a little bit and make them worthwhile. But tonight, if you would, if everybody put their phones on silent for me. The second thing is, if you need a restroom, a drinking fountain just out in the main commons area to the right, you can find them there. We'll be here for an hour to hour and a half, depending on how many questions you have, how interested you are in what we have to say, or when you get sick of us. So, if you need to get up for a break in between, by all means do it. I won't be offended. It's not a big deal. We will take like maybe a 5-minute in between Dave and my presentation. So, with saying that, I want to introduce you to. There she is. All right, we're good to go. I want to introduce you to somebody that most of you probably already know. This is Dave Bradley. Dave is with UFA, and he's the city fire marshal. But more importantly, Dave does our basic CERN training every year, and I think we're up to 6 classes now. So Dave has graciously agreed to come and give us a presentation on holiday fire safety. I think it's timely. We see a lot of house fires this time of the year because people do things that they probably shouldn't. And Dave will expand a little bit on that. So the other thing I'm going to tell you is questions are accepted. They're encouraged. It will be a very boring class if nobody asks questions. And there's a quiz afterwards if you don't ask questions. Okay? If you don't want the quiz, ask the questions.
When is the CERT class in January?
Oh, let's talk about that real quick. I was going to do it at the end, but the next upcoming CERT class will start January 9th. How many in here have been to CERT?
11.
Oh, January 11th. January 11th. He got the 5th earlier. I said it was the 11th. It's Thursday night, January the 11th. It'll start at 6:30 at night. It'll be in this room. Dave will be instructing. And it'll run for 8 consecutive Thursday nights. We'll do a half a day the last Saturday, which is the practical exercise. So if you would like to sign up, please give the main office our 801-944-7100 and just tell whoever answers you want to sign up for the CERT class, or you can send me an email, either way. And it's just pbrenneman@ch.utah.gov. So more information will be coming from your district representatives. They should send out an email or some type of communication to each one of you. So, but we look forward to that. I can host, we like 24, 25. We could probably do 30. So, and there won't be another class until a year from January. So this is your one time for the year to get into a class. So, and we've taken anybody from this young man right. How old were you when you first went through? 12? 12, 13. So he's our youngest. And probably people in late 70s, maybe early 80s. Right?
Wow.
I saw you looking over here.
You guys are in your 60s. So.
There you go.
You need new glasses.
It actually is a good time. It requires a little bit of online training before you get to class, and that's just so you can go over the book stuff. So when you're here, you can do the fun stuff, the hands-on stuff. So please, let's fill that class, and it definitely benefits you personally along with your community. So, any other questions for you?
Is there a max class size for that?
Probably 30 at the very most. Now there is a charge, it's $40, and that's so you get the helmet, the backpack, the gloves, the goggles, all of that stuff. That's the stuff you need to go through the class. I don't make any money on that, and the city doesn't have a budget to pay for that. So that's the only expense. The online portion doesn't cost you anything. It may take 6 hours to do that over the course of a month and a half. So it's a little bit of a time commitment. It's not hard, it's just you got to go in, you complete the modules, you check them off, and then before you start class, you just present me with your certificate so I know you've got the training. And that's to help Dave teach more effectively and efficiently. So, good? Without further ado, Dave, they're all yours.
All right. If this gets too loud, let me know. Paul made me wear this. So, my name's Dave Bradley. I've been with Unified Fire Authority for 16 years. For the last 2 years, I've been fire prevention. I've been your area fire marshal for those 2 years. I really enjoyed it. Like Paul said, I've been up here teaching the last 5, 6 CERT classes. We've had lots of fun. I really enjoy it. So tonight we're going to talk about holiday winter fire safety and a few other safety issues specifically to Cottonwood Heights. So, some of the holidays, let's start off with Halloween. Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, Valentine's, and let's stop at St. Patrick's Day because that's pretty a good range of the winter time up here in Cottonwood Heights. How many people live in a home that's been built, I'm going to say, within the last 15 years? Okay. So those that have been longer than 15 years, how many of you have smoke detectors in your home? Okay, how many of you change your batteries on a regular basis? How often do you change your batteries, sir?
Every 6 months.
Every 6 months, excellent. So, have a smoke detector or a smoke alarm in every hallway, every bedroom, and in the utility room. A few years ago, they did a test with a family, it was a firefighter family, and they had teenagers, and they talked about fire safety and everything, and everybody said, oh yeah, that'll be great. About a week later, they did a fire drill in the home at 1 o'clock in the morning. It took them about 7 minutes before anybody started stirring in their beds to get out of the house. We've become accustomed to certain tones and noises when that thing goes off because somebody's burnt the toast or the steam, it was placed too close to the bathroom and the steam has gotten in there. Oh man, who's done what now? It's not a timer for cooking saying dinner's ready. So what they did is now smoke alarms now have a way that you can record your voice. And they can say, you can put it in the individual room. Dave, it's Mom, there's a fire in the house. Get up. When they redid the test with these new detectors, they saw that the children were starting to move in 2 to 3 minutes instead of the 7 to 8. So I'm not saying replace all your smoke alarms. I'm just saying if you have them in each bedroom, in the hallway, it's close enough that it's going to make enough noise that hopefully it's going to be irritating enough that you're going to get up and do something. And by changing your batteries every 6 months, it saves us, the fire department, that 2 o'clock in the morning phone call or call. Yeah, my smoke alarm's going off and I don't understand why. And then we get there and we say, have you changed out the batteries? Oh, we have to change out the batteries? Because in newer homes, all smoke alarms are wired into the electrical system. They have their own breaker, and so when they say, it's a brand new house, how come they've got batteries? Well, what happens when the power goes out? It's a battery backup, okay? So replace your batteries twice a year. CO detectors, you should have one on every floor. Carbon monoxide is a weird gas. It likes to float. It's not heavier than air, it's not lighter than air. It kind of just stratifies and stays right in that one area where right here, it might be lower to the floor. But if you get upstairs, it might be up near the ceiling just because of the way the air flows in your house. So we recommend one on each floor of your home. Okay, Thanksgiving, believe it or not, this is the start of house fire season, dealing with cooking. Remember, if you're going to deep fry your chicken or your turkey, make sure that it's completely thawed. There are plenty of videos on YouTube where you can see somebody that's taken their turkey, stuck it in that oil, and next thing you know, you have flambe the height of an 8-foot ladder because the water and the oil do not mix. The oil gets pushed up, catches on fire from the flame underneath the burner, and now you have this big, huge torch. I don't know how you like your turkey. Some people like it nice and dry. Some like it nice and crispy. Sometimes it gets a little too crispy because it's been sitting in the oven too long. Or you know what? I forgot those rolls down at the store. I'm only going to be a minute. It only takes a very short time for something on the stove to go from cooking to this. When you leave something on the stove, we've seen boiling water sitting on a stove, and within 2 to 3 minutes, the cupboards are totally engulfed. The kitchen is half engulfed in fire. Fire doubles in size every 30 seconds. Okay? So in 30 seconds, if this is how big your fire is, in 30 seconds, it's twice this size. 30 seconds, whatever that size was, it'll double in that size. So this is why we say, when you have a fire, you get out, you stay out. You don't go back in. You don't go back in for your favorite pet. You don't go back in for your favorite toy, specifically for kids. It is a dangerous situation. A fire like this, right now, the heat up near the ceiling of this, you're looking at anywhere between 500 to 600 degrees. Okay, it doesn't look that hot, does it? But when you get smoke that banks down to about the countertops, that ceiling heat is closer to 1,000 degrees. Down at the countertop, you're looking at 500 to 600 degrees. Okay. Now, ambiance lighting. Everybody likes that. It's nice and calming. Yes.
I've got a question back on smoke detectors. I've read that we should replace them about every 10 years, is that right?
Depending on the detector, usually, just like everything, even I found this out a few years ago, how many believe that car seats have an expiration date? Car seats have an expiration date because they're made out of plastic. Smoke alarms have an expiration date. We say about every 5 years, because what we find is whatever has been in, or however that smoke detector is set up, whether it is a ionized or different types of way of detecting the smoke, that breaks down and makes it harder for the detector to work, or it will start malfunctioning. And something that we've seen at 2 o'clock in the morning is, yeah, they've got a brand new battery in there, but it still keeps on faulting. Then we'll look at the date that it was manufactured, and it's about 10 years old. Remember that when a house is built, the contractors buy the smoke detectors in a large quantity, so the ones that they got, that they're putting in the house today, they might have purchased 4 years ago, because that's what was sitting on the shelf. So if you look at that, look at the bottom of the smoke detector, there should be a manufacturing date on there. We say every 5 to 7 years. CO detectors as well. There's been a lot of, like, we've had situations out in Eagle Mountain where there's been a wildfire, there's been a lot of smoke in the air. What's involved in the smoke? Carbon monoxide. So it gets in there, it gets trapped in the CO detector, and all of a sudden it's going off because it's been saturated with the carbon monoxide. So things to think about.
Hey Dave,
Yes.
kind of following up on that lithium battery smoke detectors, is that, like, do you recommend them or do you still prefer the old ones, or not a difference?
It depends on you. Depends on how your household is. If you have teenagers that are really involved in video games, I might want to change over to the voice activated ones, just because they're used to the types of noises that are on the video games, which could be very associated to what the video games are playing and the noises that are involved in there. Where if it's your voice, they will pay more attention to that. We just heard a fire alarm in one of our new buildings that we did a final on, and it sounded like, you know, on submarines before they dive, that little do-do-do, dive. This is kind of how it kind of did that same thing. It said, there's a fire in the building, please move to the nearest exit. People become accustomed to certain tones and ignore them. Wives think it's, you know, husbands say it's because of their wife's tone that they get to ignore them, and they but no, certain tones. How many times have you been in a restaurant or in a public area and the fire alarm goes off? How many people actually get up and move? What happened from the time that you graduated high school to the time that this happens? You're in a hotel, the fire alarm goes off. Oh, who's brought the popcorn now? Does anybody leave the room? What have we conditioned ourselves to with noises, and how many times are they real, how many times are they false alarms? So as we do these things, we might want to look at our audience, which is our family. Okay, how do they perceive the certain sounds? Ambience lighting. Yes, go ahead.
The last smoke detector I bought was a lifetime battery. You replace the smoke detector.
Okay, those are perfectly fine as well. If you do have, and this is something to be careful of, is if you have a wired smoke alarm into your system, take that smoke alarm with you to the like Home Depot or Lowe's, because on the back side, the plug that hooks into the wiring system may be different. So now you get back, how come this won't plug in? It's proprietary to that device. So match that up, but if it's got a lifetime battery and you're having issues with it, after 5 years it says dispose of and replace, that's a great idea. I would be leery of it, just because I'm old school and twice a year. When you fall back, you change it, and when you spring forward, you change it. So, but it's whatever you're comfortable with. Any other questions with smoke alarms or CO detectors? Okay. Ambience lighting. Candles. Just recently, I think a couple weeks ago, or within the last week and a half, Tooele was very lucky. Trailer homes are what we consider a fire trap. They're made out of 1x1s, really thin, and this candle was sitting on a bureau, caught a curtain on fire, and they're lucky that they did not lose the whole structure. They were able to get in there and put it out in time. But we have seen more fires related to candles, incense candles, people that like the smell of candles. Oh, it's okay, it'll go out on its own. And they leave, and then when they come back, their house is a big candle now. Be careful with candles. If you've got one burning, make sure you put it out. If you can get the little silver, I can't remember what they're called, they're only about like maybe an inch tall. Tea candles, use those. Using big candles, I saw something on a website the other day that what you do is you put it on the candle and it's spring loaded, and as the candle burns down, there's two metal pieces that come together at the top to extinguish the candle. So if you set it at a certain depth, that's as far as it will burn. I don't know how reliable they are, but it's a way, if you want to use candles, it is a possible way of putting out a candle. Okay, this is what we call the outlet octopus. How many of us have seen this or have done this? It's you know, we've all seen them. Yes, this is one thing that causes a lot of fires, especially if you have a real tree. These wires get overheated, and those pine needles are really light and thin, and it doesn't take much to get those going.
And they're also dry.
Yes, they are very dry if you don't keep them watered. One thing that they do have, and I don't know, let's see, they do have the surge protector here, but I don't know where that one plugs into, unless it goes up to that plug up there. But yeah, please, even with LED lights, it will still pull a lot of energy, and it can overload the system. Oh, back up. Christmas trees. Please, if you're gonna go with a real tree, keep them watered. Usually, if you do about 8 ounces or a cup of water a day, depending on how soon you get the tree. As soon as you get the tree, they always say cut off like 1 inch to 2 inches off the bottom, and then put horizontal cuts into it. That way it allows the moisture to be brought up into the wood. The tree is dead, but what you're using is the absorption. The rest of the tree will just, the wood will just pull that moisture up into the tree and help keep the limbs dry. It won't take much. There's videos on YouTube that you can see a Christmas tree like this, and they just barely do a little spark, and within 3 minutes, the whole living room has smoke down to the countertops, and it is fully engulfed. Okay, so keep those trees watered and moist. Okay, any questions yet? Okay, because there's going to be a big quiz at the end, I think. Yes.
Never heard of a horizontal cut.
So on the bottom of the stem, once you've cut it, so like this is the trunk here, you cut it this way or at an angle, then just cut a couple slices this way up into it, so it kind of splinters the bottom, so there's more surface area for that water to get up into the trunk.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, inclement weather. We live in a desert. We don't have inclement weather, do we? Heavy snow. Up here in Cottonwood Heights, you get that St. George dusting, right? Just it's gone by noon. Just be aware of heavy snowfall. Not only for your own home, but also how many times do we see this going on where the streets have just been plowed, somebody's waiting at a bus stop and they're standing on the edge of the road. Okay? We have seen accidents that way where people have lost control because they weren't driving to the conditions and somebody gets hit. All right? Be careful with heavy snowfall. With your homes, especially up here on the east side, I'm going to say up like around top of the world. I used to work at Station 116, which is right over here on Wasatch, in between the two canyons. That was my station. And we would go up on that, up into top of the world and Kings Cove, and try to get up into some of those homes for medicals. And we're having to do this to get to the house. Okay. Steps. Make sure that you ice those steps. Make sure that you've got a good, clear access for the emergency responders to get in there. So that way we don't get hurt, and that way we can respond to the fire or medical emergency that's happening at your address. Fire hydrants. How many of you have fire hydrants on your property? Okay. Look for them. Right now would be the perfect time to look for them. Some things, sometimes what happens, I know up in the canyons, what they do is they'll put like a post with a little reflector on it. But in order for us to use this fire hydrant, we have a big, huge Stortz gate that's about this tall and about this wide. It fits on that front porch. If we've got this much snow, we can't get it on there, so we have to dig it out. How fast does it take for fire to double in size? 30 seconds. So every second that we have to work with the fire hydrant, the fire gets worse. So we ask that you try to keep 3 feet of clearance around that fire hydrant so we can get in there and utilize it if we need to. Okay, with heavy snow, plan your travels. I know sometimes we forget about the time clock or the time change. We wake up early, we sleep, or we hit the snooze, and all of a sudden we have a meeting at 8 o'clock. It's 7:30 and we need to get down past Knutson's Corner to get on to I-215 to get across to the valley to our meeting. Either work from home or plan for heavy snow. Look at the weather beforehand. Paul, do you know what areas of the city get plowed first with heavy snow?
So the arterials, the main roads, right?
The main roads.
Port Union, Wasatch, 23rd, Highland, and then they work out on the minor arterials after that, and then they work on the subdivision streets, and then they work cul-de-sacs.
Okay, so just be aware of that. That's how the snow removal is going to be happening in your city. Okay, do we have any avalanches? We hear about them up in the canyons all the time. It only takes a 35 to 45% grade or angle for an avalanche to happen. How many of you live up here on the East Bench where behind your home you have a 35 to 45 degree angle coming back towards the back of your house? Okay, with heavy snow, and then it gets warm and it starts to break down, and then we get another cold spell. What happens is that snow doesn't solidify into ice. It creates little crevices, and it doesn't take much. I think we had one a couple of years ago, right over here by the mouth of Paul, help me, what's the canyon that's right?
Big Cottonwood or the
No, just south
Ferguson?
Ferguson Canyon. There was somebody that was skiing or snowshoeing just across the top of their house, and they created a small avalanche within the city limits. Okay, so just be mindful of what's going on. This is what can happen. This was May of this year. Okay, if you're looking up and you see like 2 or 3 crevices coming together, once snow starts to move, it doesn't stop until it hits something. It's got a lot of energy behind it. You could end up like this. In some areas, this was a rescue. It wasn't done here. I think this was done in Europe, where the snow came in. It buried half of the house. This is the front side of the house that they're trying to get into to help get the people out. Okay, things to think about. So, to finish up, emergency preparedness for individuals. How many of you have flashlights in your home? Okay, what type of batteries do the flashlights use? Are they all double A's? Are they all triple A's? Do you have the big square 12-volt battery? Are they LEDs? Are they the little halogen bulbs that you need to keep extras on hand? Yes.
Although it's not quite as important as it used to be, because all of our phones have the flashlights on them.
Yes. Yes. But think about that. If you do have extra flashlights, are they all the same type of batteries? Try to keep the flashlights and the batteries the same, so that way you don't have a big, huge cupboard of double A's, 9s, 12 volt. So you can all kind of work. Or who has what flashlight again? Extra blankets for power outage. This is something that I've learned, and I teach this to my CERT class. Always keep your vehicle, if it's gas. I know we've got a lot of electrical vehicles now, and I don't know how you keep that half full. But if it's a gas vehicle, keep your gas tank at least half full. So that way, if you're driving anywhere, you get stuck in traffic. You're not sitting at a quarter of a tank looking for the next gas station going, I don't know if I'm going to make it. You slide off the road and you're stuck. You got half a tank to help keep you warm while you're waiting for help to come. I'm not going to hit on this one too hard, but keep extra food in the pantry. I know some people are minimalist, and they don't like to, let's just go and get what we need just for tonight. What are you gonna do when power goes out or something happens where you're now stuck? We've seen this in Buffalo and other states where they've had large snowstorms where it's shut down areas and people are having a hard time getting water or food because they can't get out of their homes. Have an alternate cooking plan. How many of you have grills? So if you have an electric stove, you lose your power, you have some other way of cooking your food. How many of you have a fire extinguisher in your home? Where is it? In the garage? Where's yours?
In the closet.
In the closet?
Yeah, by the front, by the door.
By the door? Can you get to it, or is it kind of like in the back corner of the closet? Is it under the sink, behind all the chemicals? When was the last time you looked at it?
A couple years probably, yeah.
Yes. What you said? Oh, it's a good question, because fire extinguishers have a powder in it. It's a liquid powder. If you let it sit this way for a long period of time, it becomes caked. So it may say green, and when you pull the pin, you go, you'll just get nothing but a bunch of nitrogen come out and no powder. So every 6 months, take it and tip it upside down, shake it. You should be able to feel that powder shift from the bottom to the top. Okay? If it is older than 5 years, go out and buy a new one. Don't get the ones with the plastic tops on them. They have found that those will leak, and then when you go to use them, you don't have any pressure in there, and then you can't refill them. So if they have the metal top to them, you can get those refilled sometimes cheaper than what you can buying a new one. Okay. Question? Yes.
I heard that all extinguishers last about 20 seconds to 30 seconds, no matter what their size. So if you got a big one, puts out a lot of stuff. If you got a little one, puts out a little bit of stuff.
No.
No?
No. We have, with the CERT class, we bring up a 3 foot by 3 foot burn pan. We fill it with water and we run propane through it. And I can stand here and basically right where you're sitting, within 3 seconds I can put out a fire that's burning a 3 foot by 3 foot in about 3 seconds. And I can do that 5, 6 times with the same extinguisher. Depending on the size of the extinguisher, depending on how long you hold that handle, will determine on how long that will last. But if you aim at the base of the fire, not at the flames, then you'll put out the fire a lot faster and you will preserve your fire extinguisher longer.
I'm saying 20 seconds of using it, sustaining.
Smaller extinguishers won't last 20 seconds. And so this is why what we teach is, okay, you go in, there's the fire, you're going in, you pull the pin, you look at it, test it, just do a little squeeze to make sure that it's going to work. You aim it at the base of the fire, squeeze and sweep, and stop. Fire's out, you back away. If you sit there and keep on spraying it, and the fire's staying there, then there's something, maybe that fire extinguisher is not meant for that type of fire. The most common extinguisher is an ABC extinguisher. ABC stands for, the A is ordinary combustibles like wood and paper. B are energized electrical fires, and C's are your flammable liquids. If you have burning metal, those won't work. That will not work on that. If you have a water extinguisher, which looks like a big huge silver can, that won't work on flammable liquids, and you'd get a real charge if you used it on energized electrical fires. Okay. So when you're using an ABC, that is it's a siliconized baking soda, and it should do two things. One, it will cover it so it smothers it, and at the same time it does do a little bit of cooling, but it prevents extra air or oxygen getting in, and it does do some chemical chain reaction mitigation, so the fire is not going to continue. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes?
Would you discuss those blankets you see that you can put over the fire?
It depends on what type of blankets you're talking about. There are different, if you use a polyester blanket, that won't work.
No, it's a special fire thing that you hang on the wall,
Okay,
close to where you might need it.
I would not, for one, I wouldn't go with that, just because, one, it's exposed to the air all the time. It's exposed to the sun. What, with that fire blanket, what is its properties that allows that to smother that fire? Some things like our fire turnouts that we wear, if you leave them out in the sun, the ultraviolet lights start breaking down the material on our turnouts. And so every 5 years, we have to replace our turnout gear, just because it starts breaking it down. Depending on what you're looking at, I would go with the old standbys. If you have a grease fire, salt, baking soda. If it's on a pan, make sure you have the lid to that pan. Put the lid on there. The easiest way to put out a fire is take away the heat source. If it's on the stove, turn off the heat. If it's electrified, unplug it, turn off the power to it. That way it stops the energy from propagating that fire. Any other questions? Okay. Again, keep access to your home free of ice, so for emergency responders. Keep your address visible as we're coming up to some homes. GPS is great, but sometimes our homes are so close together. Is it this house or is it this house? We just got a red dot on a phone. So we recommend that your address lettering be at least 2 inches high and contrasts with the color of your home. Okay, so if you've got a black home, black lettering or numbering doesn't work well. Okay, just something so that way as we're pulling up, we can see the numbers. I know during the summertime, it's great when people paint the numbers on the curb. That's great, but in the wintertime, it doesn't help us. Again, de-ice your driveways and stairs. If there's a fire hydrant, 36 inches or 3 feet around the device. Okay. This is one that a lot of people don't understand. During a major event, whether it be heavy weather, whether it be a natural disaster, a man-made disaster, don't plan on emergency services being there, okay? Due to bad roads, okay? Larger incidents will take priority, and responders may be coming from further away than the fire station just down the street. Okay. Up here, Station 116 on Wasatch Boulevard. They may be called down into this lower area of Cottonwood Heights for a house fire. You have a medical that happens at your home. Your next closest ambulance would be coming from Holiday or from Sandy. So when you look at that, don't be surprised that, well, geez, station's right there, why did it take them 7 minutes to get here? Well, they weren't in their station, they were either up the canyon helping out, or they might have been somewhere else on another incident. That might have been right next door, that they're transporting to the hospital. So we try to be within 5 minutes of everybody's home. But every now and then, things happen, especially during a major event, that we will be concentrating on other things than individual subdivisions or homes. So this is one thing that we kind of talked about at the beginning, CERT, Community Emergency Response Teams, taking care of your own community, is great for major events. Okay, during an avalanche, the one that happened in May this past year, the fire crews actually stayed up the canyon. They were not able to be relieved until that was cleared. So anybody that was up there was stuck there. Firefighters, workers, people that live up there, that's what they had. Now, if anything happened up there, all you have is 3 guys at the fire station to go take care of any major fire or medical. So just think about those things in your own communities and about emergency response for your communities. Any questions? Thank you for your time. Again, if you have any questions, please get a hold of Paul. He can get in contact with me. Thank you again.
Thank you. Quick, 3-minute break, let me fire up my computer and we'll get started again. All right, so they took care of the fire prevention part and some of the winter safety issues that we're all gonna face, right? By the way, is anybody ready for round 2 of winter that we had last year? Everything I'm hearing from the long-range forecaster says that we're going to have round 2. So they're expecting a heavier than normal winter, a colder than normal winter, so it is coming, so it's important we start to prepare now, right? So, but last year they said we were gonna have a mild winter, and we got our trash kicked, right? So, who knows? We'll know in March. Technology is a great thing when it works, right? Well, we're gonna do it the old-fashioned way.
You want mine?
What's that? No, I'm okay. So, is this familiar to anybody?
Right on the camera.
Oh, no.
This takes me back to my childhood.
I've done that lots of times.
Well, this is about to happen.
a little dangerous, right? All that ice, all that heavy wet snow. Yeah, it's a lot of snow.
Yeah, growing problem every time.
There you go. This was my personal favorite.
Card table.
We're gonna talk about each one of these. There is actually a point.
Where's the snowplow on that?
Yeah, exactly. I think this is on top of the Wilbur Drive, isn't it?
Almost.
The cameraman is the only smart person.
This is not one of your snowballs. Oh. Ouch. All right.
Now, some enjoy getting out the fresh powder. We're excited about the incoming storm, but others are dreading having to dig out yet again. News specialist Andrew Adams spoke to some people tonight in Cottonwood Heights who are ready for the snow to stop. Andrew, it's early in the year for that, but you know, we've already had so much snow that it's understandable, I guess.
Well, in theory, we're getting there, right? But some people have just hit their limits. And of course, here in Cottonwood Heights, they always see their share of snow. Right here where we're standing, it's grass. But up a little bit higher, it's a much different picture. And I tell you, the people we talked to tonight are not looking forward to at least another foot of the white stuff.
It was a beautiful season around here, especially with the mountains.
In a place where the snow is always deep,
A lot of beauty to it.
it's almost expected to whitewash the winter.
Overall, I really like it.
The face, though, is usually the tell. And the real answer is soon to follow.
Yeah, I was ready about into January for spring.
Which was
Anybody starting to shake,
and it's
experiencing
raising its head as the
PTSD?
massive piles of snow and slush that have still yet to melt in the foothills of Cottonwood Heights.
I saw the alert that said there's a winter storm advisory, and I was like, that's the last thing we need.
More than a few people are loading the latest forecast, which shows up to a foot of snow for the valley starting Tuesday, and at least 15 inches here.
It is definitely something that I could do without.
Ashley Tonella is already up to her eyeballs in snow, to the point she's at a loss for words.
Well, drivers are dealing with more of the same that other drivers are dealing with all over the Wasatch Front. We saw vehicles struggling on certain streets and having a hard time slipping and sliding on their way up some of the hills here in North Salt Lake. All rock clouds here are just trying to keep up with all the snow. In North Salt Lake, clouds are just trying to keep roads clear. I think up the big hill, but then it's right at this smaller hill that I take it up. And some drivers are having a tough time getting to where they need to be.
That's North Salt Lake, but look at Butler Hill over here on Fort Union. Look on Bengal. Look at, Kings Hill. It was one of the pictures you saw earlier. All right, we're gonna skip forward through a few of those things. What I wanna talk to you tonight about is weather concerns, severe weather, different types of weather, things that you're going to face challenges with over the next, last year was like 8 months from now, right? I don't think we got out of it until late April, right? But this stuff is coming. It could be as soon as next week, it could be wait till January. The cold weather we know is coming in late November, early December. And all of those present challenges for us as residents here, right? Everybody here lives in Cottonwood Heights, right? Everybody here has a house, a home, some type of domicile that you live, that you have to take care of, that you reside in, right? So you need to prepare that now, not when the first snow hits, not when the first cold weather hits. You should have started a month ago. What we want to do is talk about some things tonight that you can do moving forward. I'm going to go through a whole bunch of things tonight, and it's just basically tell you, to tickle you, to say you should start to consider these types of things. And I've got 9 or 10 slides on here that have a lot of different lines. So I apologize for death by PowerPoint, but I think each one of these is important. So we're gonna go ahead and start through it. So types of weather concerns. First one that we know can happen, no matter if we get a lot of snow or a little snow or no snow, is we'll have severe cold. We're in Utah, we're in a high desert. We're gonna be below 0 at points of time. We're gonna be below 32 degrees and freezing most of the winter time, right? So severe cold is one of the concerns that we have. The first thing I wanna tell you is, you need to start monitoring different resources to help you understand what's about to happen. Does that make sense? Everybody here watch a weather report on TV, get your weather report through a network, a local news network. It's good to do that because they have a weather forecast directly related to what we're doing here. But the online forecasts can help you as well. Weather.gov, some of the other ones have great weather forecasting information, and they're very accurate. I love weather.gov. That was my personal favorite. So realize it's a guess more than about 72 hours out. But it will tell you what your weather temperature is going to be for extended periods. And that's the thing you want to be aware of, okay? Pre-plan for events. What does that mean? We all talk about emergency preparedness, right? We all put our 72-hour kit together, we all store extra water, we all do this, we all do that. But when you watch those and you monitor those weather sources, you can pre-plan for those events. You can do things like it's cold, so I'm gonna bring the dog in. You can do things like it's gonna snow, which means I need to leave for work 45 minutes earlier than I normally do. So the first thing you do is you gather intelligence, and then you make a plan. And if you have one plan, always get a second plan. The first one seems to go awry a lot of the time. So pre-plan for the events. Gather your necessary supplies. The time to get a snow shovel or a card table is not when it's already snowing. Okay? Go down to Home Depot after the first big snowfall, or down to Pearson's lawnmower service and look for the people that are going in and buying snow shovels and snow blowers, right? The time to do this is now. Make sure you get the snow shovel out where you can get to it. Make sure the snow blower, we'll talk about it in a little bit, that it's accessible. If you don't have one or want one, it's time to get one now, not on the day of the snowstorm. Let's talk about survival supplies versus comfort supplies. Anybody want to give me a venture guess what I'm talking about here? Survival supplies. What do you need to survive? Go ahead, Cindy.
I was gonna say, a sleeping bag and power goes off, so you've got something more.
Sure. Is that a survival item or is that a comfort item?
I think survival.
Yeah, right? But it could be a comfort item as well. What else? What other survival supplies do you need to survive for an extended period of time? Ted?
Shelter, heat, food, and a way to prepare it, water.
Drugs.
Did you look at my presentation?
No.
Food, water, shelter, other things, medicine. That's a big deal, right? You can't get out of your house. Those are items that are necessary for human survival. You can't survive long periods of time without water, you can without food. But the heat and the shelter, that becomes problematic, right, if you're not prepared for that. Hypothermia can set in fairly quickly. If you don't have something to keep the wind out, and the rain out, and the snow out, you're in trouble really fast, right? So take a look at that. I threw medicine on the end because how many in here, you don't have to raise your hand, it's not a HIPAA violation for me to simply ask, think in your mind, what medicine do you need to survive? I take medicine on a daily basis. Most people do when you get to be my age, right? So do you have enough of that supply to get you through a couple of days? Or do you do like the insurance company says, you can't refill it until you're 80% gone, which means, what is that, 4 days? So try and get a supply of the critical medicines that you need to survive, keep them on hand, right? Okay. Second thing I want to talk about just briefly is comfort supplies. Back in my day, loved to hunt. I loved to do solo hunts. And one of the things I had a problem with was when I'm out on my own for days and days and days, I would get the case of the, I want to go home, I lose interest, I don't, my motivation level drops. But when you had comfort supplies, good food, candy, maybe a source of entertainment, didn't matter what it was, those were items that helped me weather that time and maintain a good attitude and stay out longer. And you need the same thing if we've got to survive for an extended period of time in your home, right? Well, what are we talking about there? How many of you have generators in your home? Yep. How many of you have solar panels in your home? connect to a battery, not just backfeed the system, so you can store that electricity? How many of you have alternate sources of energy, right? It's a good thing to have, because what do we depend on these days? I mean, everybody has a cell phone, right? Randy, you talked about the cell phone having a flashlight, but if we drain that cell phone using the flashlight, we can't recharge it, we don't have connection with the world, and we might lose a light source or something else. But more importantly, if you've got alternative power, what can you do? You can turn on the TV, right? You can watch those TV shows, keep you entertained. You can get on the internet and do whatever it is you're going to do there, right? How about heat? Heat's a big one. We can bundle up in sleeping bags for days on end, but if you've got an alternative heat source that makes it comfortable for you to live in your home and do what you do, you're going to be more happy and you're more likely to be able to sustain yourself for longer periods of time. Entertainment's a big one. We depend on our TVs, we depend on our cell phones, we depend on the internet, we depend on a lot of those things. But how about board games? Do you have those stashed in the house? Do you have books? Not books on tape, not books on the Kindle, but actual hard copy books that you could read and provide yourself with a source of entertainment, keep your mind occupied over long periods of time. That's the difference. Survival versus comfort. You gotta have the survival stuff. You need it in your house, you need it to prepare it for that now. But throw in the comfort items that'll make you happy, make it more tolerable to be without for a couple of days, right? And by the way, if you have any questions, please raise your hand or shout it out or do whatever. Transportation. Dave hit on this a little bit. Transportation is a big deal. We're going to talk a little bit more about vehicles and how you prepare those for winter. But do you have a source for transportation during severe weather, severe cold, severe deep snow, those times ice storms, whatever it might be? Do you have a way to get around? It doesn't have to be a vehicle. It can be an alternative form. How many in here do cross-country skiing? How many of you have snowshoes? How many of you have a good pair of shoes that you can put a pair of those grabbers, the crampons, so you can walk across the ice or up and down a driveway or to the store down the way? How many of you have cold weather gear that you can wear if you're not in a car and be able to be more mobile with that? So think about that. Think about transportation if the car isn't available. How are you going to get around? Or do you need to get around? Let's talk about alternative shelter options. What does that mean? You could go to the neighbor's house. You're right. But what happens if, you're thinking outside the box, and that's an absolute alternative solution. If they like you, mine don't like me, so you gotta come up with something else. Somebody says you live across the street from him, and he says no, so I need plan B. How many in here have tents? Anybody have the Cub Scout tent? Yeah, in the middle of a winter storm, that Cub Scout tent isn't very good. But how many in here have a four-season tent? I've got one. That four-season tent, I'm very comfortable in extreme cold. But a lot of people don't have that. How about RVs, trailers, motorhomes, those types of shelters? A lot of people have those, right? So think about alternative sheltering options. And the final one under alternative shelter is if you can find transportation and get out of the area, you go to a friend's house, you go to a motel, you go to an alternative, whatever it is, family member that's outside the immediate area. That's alternative shelter. But the time to think about that is now, not when the power's out, not when it's been out for 3 days, not when the pipes are frozen. Go ahead, Debbie.
The guys are gonna really appreciate this, but they might really like to get a snowmobile,
You
to
could.
have, or,
Mhm.
a four-wheeler
Side by
or
side, a
something.
four-wheeler,
Yeah,
all of
those
those.
things.
Alternative transportation forms. And when we're talking about alternative shelter options, on-site versus off-site is critical. Can you maintain yourself on your property for extended periods of times, or do you need to vacate the property and go somewhere else? So think about that. Put that information together. What is your alternative plan? So, any questions on that? Any comments? Perfect. Let's talk about other types of weather concerns. How many in here have a bug out kit? Is it a 72-hour kit, or is it a true bug out kit where you have extra clothing, maybe bedding, your medicines, your important documents, those items in your life that you can't live without, right? Your birth certificate, your credit card, some cash, I already mentioned medicines. Things that are gonna make you comfortable off-site, the things that you have to have, the hair dryer, the shaver, those types of items that you might need to sustain yourself away from your property for a period of time. And that bug out kit's not just good for severe weather, it's good for if we have to evacuate a neighborhood because of a fire, or we have an earthquake. The bug out kit is a multi-purpose item that needs to be portable. It can't just be, I'm gonna gather up all these things, I've got my checklist, and so now that I need to get out, I'll just start gathering things up. Store it in some manner where it's easily portable. Those big plastic chests that you buy at Costco or at Home Depot, the ones with the black body and the yellow tops, you can fill a lot of stuff in one of those 55-gallon or 65-gallon totes and throw it in the back of the car and be pretty mobile. And it's all centrally located, it's ready to go. You don't have to gather it up. So build your bug out kit. Make sure it's got the clothing like we talked about, personal hygiene items, I missed that, not just medicines, but the deodorant, the toothbrush, the toothpaste, whatever it is you need to sustain your personal hygiene for a period of time, right? Medicines, we talked about. Food and water is a big deal. If you're going to leave the house, you probably ought to have some form of water. We can't live long without water. Have some snacks that are easily portable, something that gives you, it's high energy, high fat, something that's going to sustain you, that you don't have to prepare. You can just crack open the seal and eat it. Personal documents are critical. Other essential items, and this one you need to be creative here. What makes your rule work? So, what is it you need, can't do without, have to have? And what about pets? How many in here have pets? I do. So one of the things you need to remember is have a bug out kit for the pet. And make sure you include stuff like pet licensing information, their vaccination certificates, the food and the water for them as well, leashes, poop bags, all of that kind of stuff that you would need for that dog to maintain, Fluffy for a period of time. So, all right, any questions so far? All right, this is going easy. You guys are an easy group. Severe cold, thing that kills is hypothermia, it's lack of heat, and it can happen quickly. Whether it be from simply exposure to the cold, if you get wet and exposed to the cold, you get wet and exposed to moderate temperatures, you can experience hypothermia. You need to plan for that lack of heat. You need alternative heat sources for your home and alternative cooking sources. Dave already talked about that, go ahead.
Sorry, can you flip back one slide?
Sure.
I want to get a picture of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep. By the way, this is being recorded. It'll be up on the website next week, so you'll have access to it. Tell your friends, your neighbors. Sorry they have to endure me instructing you, but the information is good, so, all right. Lack of heat, alternative heat and cooking sources. We really need to be careful with these. How many in here have the barbecue on the back deck? How many of you have extra propane for that barbecue on the back deck? Good. A lot of people have the one bottle and that's it, and when you need it, you've got a quarter of a bottle left, which sustains you for a couple of meals. So plan ahead for that. Keep a couple of bottles around. The Traegers. Anybody smoker in here? I love my Traeger. It's the best thing in the world, but that thing ain't gonna work without electricity, right? So make sure you got the alternative cooking source. I love my camshaft. That's my plan. I have an RV or a trailer, a fifth wheel that has a stove in it, and I can cook it in. So, but plan for that. You can also buy small, self-contained cooking stoves, anywhere from white gas, propane. I've seen the little heat tablets. I mean, there's all kinds of alternative cooking methods. So plan ahead for that. Make sure you've got something to heat your food. Remember we talked about comfort and survival? Cold SpaghettiOs can be consumed, and I've done it. Warm SpaghettiOs are really good. Okay? Let's talk about safety concerns when you are using an alternative heat source. One, if it is burning a carbon-based fuel, I don't care what it is, carbon-based fuel, you need to vent it properly. You can't burn that in the house without taking appropriate precautions. You don't want to be dead, right? The whole plan is not be dead. So plan accordingly. Use it in a well-ventilated area. Make sure that you understand the ramifications of using it wrong. Plan ahead for where you're going to use it and practice with it in that area where you're going to use it. Don't assume it's going to work. Go ahead, Debbie.
We used a kerosene heater, it's called kerosene you turn it off outside, and then you don't smell the kerosene.
There you go. You don't get the black soot, right?
No.
When you start it up. Kerosene, I've heard both ways. Some say you shouldn't use it in, others say it's safe to do it. I've used mine for years inside. When I was young, and didn't have a lot of money for the extra heat. I lived in an apartment that was horrible. I think it was cinder block walls, so we used it and loved it. And you can actually cook on the top of that. It's hot enough to heat, so kerosene heaters, there's your pitch.
Does consume oxygen.
It does, so you have to vent it properly, right? The other thing is the kerosene lasts forever. I've got a 5-gallon thing of kerosene that I've had forever, and I dump the fuel out of the kerosene occasionally and refill it. It burns just fine, so kerosene's good. So be careful with those. How many of you have your furnaces inspected yearly? You don't have to raise your hand if you don't. A lot of people don't do that. They really don't. And you have to be careful with that because furnaces burn or can be a source of carbon monoxide, right? If they're not properly operating. So make sure you have them inspected, right? Dave already talked about a lot of these things, so I'm gonna go fire through them. Home generators. If you have a home generator, do you service it regularly? Do you test it monthly or weekly or whatever? Do you have the fuel source? Is it the natural gas, so it's hooked up to the service line in your home? Or is it an alternative source where you can run it off natural gas, off propane, or off diesel, or off gasoline? Plan for those things. Go ahead, Janice.
Solar panels.
Solar panels too, the same way. Those new solar generators are amazing. So, but plan now for that thing. Make sure it's functioning now. You don't wait to fire it up, or you're depending on it to fire up on its own if you haven't tested it over the last 6 or 8 months, right? Do those periodic inspections. Frozen pipes. Anybody in here ever have one of those? Oh yeah. So we want to make sure that we plan ahead for frozen pipes. That severe weather will get them quickly. So there's a lot of things you can do, and I'm not going to go over step by step, but protect the outside exposures. There's lots of ways to do that. You can do the constant drip, you can do the insulation solutions. The best thing is to make sure the ones that you have out there are rated for the weather you live in. It's not just a standard one that it's, there's different lengths of the outside faucets, the spigots that go into your house, penetrate into your house. Part of it's dry, part of it's wet. Make sure that if you're the least bit concerned, extra insulated, or have a plumber look at it, make sure it's going to be protected as we get closer to cold weather. Windows and doors. How many people have the latest and greatest windows and doors in their homes? They're a great thing. I just spent $12 grand on 15 windows, literally this week. And that was a steal. I've got a contractor that did a good job, and they're reasonably priced. One place wanted $44,000 for 15 windows. Yeah, it was Champion. Excuse me, I'm sorry. It was an unknown brand.
Is that going to be edited in the video presentation?
They did come down with the 2-for-2 sale. It was down to 22,000. So, anyways. But the point I'm trying to make is your windows and your doors are probably the greatest place that you lose heat. Maybe next year, if you don't have adequate insulation in your attic. Windows and doors that aren't properly sealed or insulated, you lose a ton of heat. So you can go through and check them now. If you've got that drafty window, there's coverings that you can put on it. So after you check for leaks and drafts, right? Proper seals and treatments. What that basically means is, when I was a kid growing up, we would take the visqueen and we would tape it out, to the inside of the window that created dead air space on the inside of the house. You put up heavy curtains. You can put up shutters, anything that would give you a little bit more dead space between the covering and the window can help provide that extra level of seal or insulation. So check that out because we lose a lot of heat. How about this though? If you have an extended period of time where your home is without electricity and heat, how should you deal with a way to conserve heat within that environment? What should you do? How many homes have 9-foot ceilings, 10-foot ceilings, 12-foot ceilings, 20-foot ceilings? How many rooms do you need to heat in an emergency? Do you really need to heat the kitchen where all you're going to be doing is cooking? What room in the house do you really need to heat? The sleeping quarters, right? So an alternative source of heat could be simply that you fortify a bedroom somewhere that you can bring the whole family into, where that body heat can help as an alternative heat source, You come together close, you don't have to heat as much. If you have a kerosene heater or something, you can run it in there for periods of time, but consolidate your space in the house, protect that space. Oh, by the way, when's the time to have the plastic coverings and the tape to do this? You get it now, not the morning when the power goes out and you have that issue, so. How about your chimneys? Anybody in here have fireplaces still? How many have gas fireplaces? How many have the new fireplaces that vent to the outside through the wall in the house? We should check all of those now. You should inspect each one of those for the different problems they might present, right? So you don't want the birds or the raccoons that are in the old style chimney on the house. It happens. We've had them up here in Common Heights where a family of raccoons, made their way into a chimney because the heat. There you go.
And they don't like pine saw.
They don't? Oh,
No.
that's good. So
Put
did you
pine saw on a rack, on a rope and
drop it down?
She took her babies and they were
Well,
out.
I love it. See, you learn something new every day. Pine saw, I'm on it. That, yeah. Raccoons are nasty animals. But anyways. So inspect the chimneys or those vents to the outside for those items that you're getting heat from. Don't forget your furnace flue that goes up through the roof. Make sure that you've got a roof cap on that. Make sure it's not, birds haven't made a nest in it. You wanna make sure that all of those heating sources, the venting for that is open and free, right? So, and don't wait. You don't wanna be climbing on the roof like that guy that was pushing the snow down the one side, fell in a bee on top. Yeah, that's not a good time to do it.
We had
Yes.
a friend who had a cabin up at Brighton,
Oh, wow.
and the guy fell off, well, somebody went out there to check on it. He was clearing the roof off, he fell off, the snow fell on top of him, and he died.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Wow. I've seen some pictures from up there last winter, and they had literally 15, 20 feet on some of those places that they just build up and build up. The insulation was great, and they just stacked up and stacked up. You can still go up there today, and there's garages up there that were crushed by the weight of the snow, so be careful. That very first video I showed you where they were knocking the snow off the metal roof, that stuff happens. So. Inspect your roof. How many people in here inspect your roof? Right? Now you should. So there's a thing called an ice dam that can build up and it'll separate your shingles, and you might not notice it last year, but this year when the ice and the snow builds up, you might notice it. And to get a roofer out in the middle of a snowstorm, yeah, good luck. So inspect your roof now. Clean out your rain gutters. One of the things we see a lot of is those rain gutters will plug, and you get water that splashes over the edge and goes down into window wells and other areas where it's not supposed to be. Or it freezes and pulls them off the roof, or there's all kinds of things that can happen. So clean out your rain gutters. Trim your trees back. If you've got trees that are overhanging your house and they still have leaves on them, you get that first big snowfall of the year, it can take that branch right down and cause damage to your roof. So trim the trees back, do it now. Prevent the ice dams on the roof. You can do that in a wide variety of ways, but if you're prone to ice dams, protect it now. Get the heating elements up there, or plan for the ice melt fuse you throw on the roof, or whatever you need to do.
I don't think that spells out.
Probably isn't, but it's Paul, and it was late in the week, and it's, damn. Cindy, be nice. You could just laughed and snickered and let it go. I did that just for you, so you can catch me. How about this? How many of you actually have proper clothing and footwear for severe weather? I do, because I buy it for hunting and outdoor recreation.
And does it still fit?
Does it still fit? Yeah, there's that, right? But how about the footwear? Sorels are good, they really are, but you need some type of soft rubber compound, not the hard stuff that freezes, gets hard and slick, right? How about the little crampon, I don't know what the word is, the traction devices you put on the bottom of your shoe. Spikes, crampon spikes. They're just a traction device. I saw them at Costco. They sell them this time of the year. You can buy 2 sets for like $12. Get a set of those. What's that? Yak Trax, something like that, right? There's a bunch of different ones. But are you prepared for that? Do you have those? If you have to vacate your house and walk somewhere, or better yet, you gotta go down the steep driveway to get the garbage can like the one guy couldn't get back up. So little things like that. It is funny, but proper clothing comes into play. How about headwear? You lose over 50% of your heat through your head, even if you have hair on it, folks. Just because I'm bald doesn't mean that you're that much better than me. You are, but. So
do you know where that clothing's at? You have to dig it out. Is it ready to go? Do you have enough of it on hand? Do you have the gloves? Do you have the scarves? Do you have all those things? And do you have it for your family members, not just you? Plan ahead. Eye protection. Anybody have eye protection for cold weather? Snow weather? Yeah. You've been out on a bright sunny day in the snow, and you can get eye fatigue, eye burn fairly quick, right? Snow blindness is a thing. So plan for that. But if you're in a blizzard and have to vacate the house, it's nice to have a set of goggles where you can see where you're going, right? Pet care.
Can you
Love
go
my
back-
pets.
Can you go back to the picture?
Sure, absolutely.
Awesome.
You need me to go further back? I can go back. I got the handy dandy clicker. All right, severe cold for pets. Like I say, I'm a big dog person. We had snowfall up here that was measured in feet last year, not inches, but feet. How many of you have little fluffy snowballs called, I don't know, Maltesers and cockasomethings and poodaloos? And I have a Labradoodle, so I can say that. I can make fun of them. What is it? They used to be mistakes, and you could get them for free. Now they cost you $2,000 because somebody had a mistake and thought it was cute in the dog world. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox. Let's plan for our pets, both at the house and away from the house. But at the house, when you have severe snow, severe cold, you need to bring the dog in, right? If you have a dog I ran hunting dogs forever. They were outside dogs until it reached about 20 degrees, and then they became indoor dogs. So plan for that. Make sure that if they're outdoors and it is cold and it's freezing weather, that they have a source of water, and it's fresh water, and it's unfrozen water. Make sure that you increase I'm getting ahead of myself. Adequate food and shelter. Make sure you take care of them if they're gonna be outside. Inside's another story. Increase their calorie intake on the animals, right? They're just like us. In cold weather, you burn more calories and they need more, especially if they're gonna be outside.
Or you're gonna warm them in your bed. It's a $3
There's
night.
that too. I got you. I like that. 3 dogs a night was a good band. 3 dogs are good. Fresh water sources, both inside and out. Make sure you take care of that. Cold weather requires both for you and your animal more water, right? You wouldn't think about it, but you need to stay hydrated. Clear the outside pathways. One of the funniest things, I used to have a Chihuahua. Love that dog. Passed away last year. 7 pounds, about that big. Zoe was my dog. Love Zoe. But when we get the snow in the backyard, that dog would disappear. And she would refuse to go out off the patio, so all of her little messes were made on my patio because I didn't clear a pathway so she could go out and do her business on the lawn somewhere. So clear the pathways out there, make sure your dogs can get around to where they need to be, right? And, Debbie, sorry, there you go. All right, so take care of your pets. By the way, it is a crime not to take care of your pets, and we actively pursue that during the winter months, so please take care of those animals. Let's talk about maintenance of snow removal equipment. How many in here have snow blowers? Dude, I have one. It's the best investment I ever made, right? But the time to make sure that it runs is today, tomorrow, this Saturday, whenever, not when you go out and fire it up for that first snowstorm of the season. So you go down to Pearson Lawnmower on the day after the first snowfall, and either they're buying new ones or they're hauling the ones that don't work in, and they're being told it'll be 6 weeks before your lawnmower comes back, or your snowblower comes back. So do your maintenance now. Don't wait for the snow to fly. Understand your physical limitations. True story. My wife's grandfather passed away from shoveling snow. Heart attack, better than dead, age 78. So know your limitations. If you are not in good enough health to shovel the snow, find somebody that will do it for you, right? Take care of yourself, know your limitations. And there's a lot of us that are a little bit younger. Those limitations, we think they're a certain level when they're really not. That heavy wet snow will knock you into the dirt quickly, right? So, but I'm also gonna ask you to watch out for your neighbors. Here in Collinwood Heights we have a little older clientele, right? Let's look out for those that are a little more mature than some of us. So if you have somebody next door that is of that, please watch out for them, get their walk shoveled. We don't want one of them to go down because they're trying to do something they shouldn't be doing, okay? So So, or find a scout or a neighbor, you know, child that would be willing to do it, so. But understand your physical limitations. Monitor your buildings, awnings, shed, and trees for snow buildup, right? I have a covered patio, and it's an aluminum awning, and I love that thing. But when it gets a little bit of snow on it, you can watch it start to bow a little bit. So I have to go up there and I have to shovel it off. So just know what your limitations are on your structures and keep that snow off of it, right? So, and do it earlier. You don't want to be up there when there's 4 feet of snow. Do it when there's 2 feet of snow, right? Stay home. Stay off my roads. Please, please. I don't care how good of a driver you are, there's always somebody out there that's an idiot. And they will hunt you down and hit you. They just do. So, if at all possible, please stay home. And 2, expectations of when your snow will be removed have to be proper and reasonable. You heard on the one news report, my cul-de-sac's the last one to be plowed. I'm here to tell you, if you're in a cul-de-sac, you will be the last plow. I'm sorry. Back to life. Yeah. No, Paul's the realist. I live on the west side. I don't see a snow plow until the snow stops and up to 2 days later. That's a true story. It is what it is. We do a really good job up here. It's not as good as everybody wants it to be. Man, we do a good job up here. So, but just be patient, be reasonable, and stay home.
What do you do if you're out of town and it snows and there's no, you're not there?
So I don't go hunting citations. Depends. If you're a snowbird and you're out of town for 6 months, hire a company to shovel your walks or pay the neighbor kid to shovel your walks, right? Does that make sense?
And it's just the front walk, right, that people walk?
Yeah, and
Your driveway or?
it's your sidewalk. It's the area of conveyance for other people. Does that make sense? So, and we will get to your home as quickly as possible. I watch these guys work. They start at the start of the snowstorm, because we call them out, my guys, when I say we, my guys call them out, and those guys will work for 18 hours straight, plowing roads. So, and if anybody wants to complain about snow plows, come to West Jordan where I live, and I'll show you something to complain about. But please, in all seriousness, stay home if you can. Go ahead.
So the other thing that you mentioned in the neighborhood watch is that if you plow your sidewalk and your driveway, it shows that somebody's home.
Absolutely.
And it's safer so that the criminals aren't gonna come looking for you.
Exactly. So there's all kinds of reasons to do it, but the law says you have to shovel your sidewalk, right? So take care of that. But more importantly, if you're driving during a snowstorm, it becomes problematic. If you don't allow enough time to drive during a snowstorm, it becomes problematic because everybody else is out there with you at the same time. So extra time for travel, please. On a heavy snow day, an hour ahead of time is not too much time ahead of time. Does that make sense? Don't park on the road. The law says that during a snowstorm or an anticipated snowstorm, until 24 hours after the snow stops, you can't park on the road. I don't care if it is your road, you can't park on the road. That's the law. And we will come up and I will tow your vehicle or I will ticket your vehicle or I might be nice and give you a little orange sticker that says, don't park on the road. We do that for safety purposes. The plows can't plow effectively and efficiently if you're parked on the road during a snowstorm. So, and we do go hunting those, and it's about getting the snow plows in. So please don't park on the roadway. So, one of the things that you need to, we're talking about routine maintenance for anything, I just want to reiterate this. Do it now. Don't wait till you're in a pickle, right? So routine maintenance needs to be done now. Tires, we're talking about cars now, right? This is vehicle preparation. So routine maintenance can be your oil changes, it can be checking the battery to see if it's good. But the tires, and when I write tires, and more tires, make sure your tires are up to snuff. You shouldn't have the, when I was a kid, I couldn't afford tires, so we ran slicks on the back because we were out of tread. That's not what you want in the middle of a snowstorm. Does that make sense? Number 2, all-season tires. How many of you have all-season tires on their car? They sell them all the time. Those are not snow tires, and they are not good in snow. Now, will they work if you have a 4-wheel drive? Sure. They're still not snow tires. Snow tires are a softer rubber compound. They're designed for cold weather and to be sticky, and that's how you get around. So snow tires are worth the investment. But inspect your tires now, right? Inspect your tires now. Make sure you have the appropriate gear. Batteries, first cold of the season will kill your battery. You'll know it right away. So have your battery checked. If it's been a while, replace it. Windshield wiper blades. How many of you have the streaks that go across your windshield? You've been putting it off for the last 6 months, right? Because Costco usually sells them, but they have a sale. They're like $6 for one blade, $12 a set. It's not too bad. But replace your windshield wiper blades at the start of the season. It's well worth it. Window scraper. How many of you have a window scraper? Oh my gosh. The first one of you I find that doesn't use that, I'm gonna write you a ticket. Here's the deal. How many times are you driving the morning of a heavy frost or a snowstorm and you see some knucklehead driving with this little teeny hole and that's all you have on the entire car? Those are my pet peeves. I don't make a lot of traffic stops. Those people get my attention. They're easy to spot and I don't know why you do it that way. But anyway, use the snow scraper, okay? And scrape the front, scrape the side, scrape the rear, okay? Vehicle emergency kit.
Hey,
The
Paul.
following items are courtesy of the CDC. I got that from the
Question,
website.
Paul,
But,
back on tires, if your all-season tires have that logo with the mountain peaks, are those
Yeah.
okay?
Those are probably, yes, they are. It's got the mountain scene or they got the snowflake scene on
Oh,
them.
it's not-
But the ones that just say all season, those aren't snow rated, so. A vehicle emergency kit. This is something more than your personal bug out kit. It's not a 72-hour kit for the vehicle. This is an emergency kit for the vehicle specifically, okay? How many people in here don't have a cell phone? It's a rhetorical question, don't answer it. Everybody does. Oh, come on. How many of you have a charging cable that works in your car? Make sure you have an extra charging cable. You never know when you're gonna get stuck on a roadway, on I-15, south of Beaver for hours, right? So, items to stay warm, extra hats, coats, mittens, blankets are a big deal. I used to bug my wife because she has 2 blankets in every car that we take. There's a reason for that, because one, she's cold-blooded, and 2, it's a winter survival kit. Windshield wiper scraper, you gotta have that to see the previous. How about a shovel? Anybody in here have a small shovel? You get your butt stuck in a snowbank, and it doesn't have to be much of a snowbank if it's icy. That shovel comes in handy. Battery-powered radio with extra batteries. That one's an item you may or may not need. Flashlight with extra batteries. How many in here have rechargeable flashlights everywhere? I love rechargeables, except they require a power source to charge. So I also keep a lithium battery, one of the ones that have the 10-year batteries, those CR123s. I keep one of those in every vehicle I have. Water and snack foods. Can't mention that enough. And make sure you got some stuff for your dog if you're traveling long distances. First aid kit. Necessary medications, a pocket knife. I mean, pretty self-explanatory, but a lot of people don't have that in the car. Tow chains or a tow strap. These things can help get you out of trouble. They really can. Or better yet, when somebody offers to get you out of trouble, you're prepared. You don't have to use their stuff. If they don't have it, you still can avail yourself to their kindness, right?
Wait a minute.
Oh, sorry, a little fast.
I'm a fast rider, but not that fast.
Not that fast. I got you. All right.
Thank you.
Tire chains. When it says chains, more than likely they're going to be cables now. There's some type of alternative tire traction device. They're worth their weight in gold. The new ones are fairly small, fairly inexpensive, and they get you out of a lot of problems, like all-season tires. Yes, sir.
Oh, on the tire chain question, is it, obviously they come in pairs, is that something that you need, like my van, it's a front wheel drive car, just for the front wheel, or is it to get four?
Depends on who you talk to.
Okay.
I've always been taught that you put the chains on the drive tires of the vehicle, because that's where you get your traction. I've also been told that you don't do that you put them on the steering tires of the vehicle. I think that's fallacy, but I've got a son-in-law that insists that's where you put tire chains. or you put them on a Ford, which is what my truck has, because I do stupid stuff in my truck. So I would tell you to follow the manufacturer's instructions on the chains, and usually it's going to be the drive tires, okay? If you have a rear wheel car, anybody here have a rear wheel drive car still? There's not a lot of them out there. You might want
A truck that's rear
a
wheel.
truck, yeah. You might want them on the front as well, just simply to give you some steering. But the rear is where you get to drive. Can compressed air with sealant for emergency tire repair. Cat litter sand, or it says rolled salt. Throw a bag of ice melt in there. That way you don't have to worry about pock marking your cement on the driveway at the house. Ice melt's a great thing. But throw some of that in. Booster cables, jumper cables. There's some new little jump boxes that you can buy. I've got one in the truck out here that's amazing. We jump diesels with it. I jump the big rig with it. And you can buy them for $80. And they're lithium battery. They last forever. You charge them and they'll stay good for months. So, hazard or other reflectors in case you're broken down on the roadway. Bright colored flag, help signals, emergency distress flag, emergency flares. That's if you're out in the West Desert doing stuff you shouldn't do in a snowstorm. We've seen it happen. Road maps. I was talking about this with somebody the other day where we used to carry the atlas, the road atlas, and the big one, right? Because you can see where you're going. I love those. I miss those. We had them forever. Now we all have Google Maps, Google, Earth, that kind of stuff. But some method to find your way out of a predicament. And just remember, Siri and the different map programs lie all the time. If it doesn't look like a road, it's not a road. Just saying. Waterproof matches in a can to melt snow for water. I throw a bunch of bottles of water in my car. I probably have 8 at any time. They're inside the cabin of the car, not the trunk. Trunk they'll freeze, the cabin they usually don't. But just be prepared if they do. All right, where to go for sources. One of my favorites in the world is BeReadyUtah.gov, right? That is all things for all things emergency preparedness. The national version is ready.gov. And that one has a plan that's specific to emergency planning for severe weather. CDC has some good information on it for disasters. The one that I like right now is the UDOT traffic camera and their website. And we got cameras all over this state. When you talk about planning, right? The very first slide I showed you said to do what? Monitor and plan, right? Monitor and plan. That website will tell you what the roads are in this city, on I-15, 215, any of the major thoroughfares. There are so many cameras out there. Love that website.
The UDOT traffic app that you can
2
download
of them now.
is amazing.
Yeah, and they just updated it.
It's so great.
The traffic app is its own thing that gives you a lot of different resources and cameras, and they have a specific app just for cameras. And you can, the cameras that are important to you, so on mine right now I have 5, which is the Wasatch Boulevard traffic cameras, because that's what I deal with on snow days. But that is amazing. You pick the cameras that are important to you, and it will bring it up, and you put them in groups, and there's no charge to it. So use that. Utah Traffic website is an amazing tool. All right, let's talk about shelter in place. And I promise I'm gonna get you out of here in about 10 minutes unless we have too many more questions. I wanna talk about what shelter in place is and what it's not, when you would use it. Because one of the things that crops up all the time is we hear the term shelter in place, and I don't know when I'm supposed to do that, how I'm supposed to do that, and why it's important, right? There's different types of events in this world that are gonna require you to shelter in place. When I say require, it's a choice. You obviously don't have to shelter in place. You can be foolish and leave your house at the wrong time, right? Environmental concerns. What are we talking about there? Shelter in place, environmental concerns. What have we been talking about all night? Yep, floods one. Severe weather, right? You have to shelter in place in your home. Severe weather, snowstorms, tornadoes, floods, something that makes it dangerous for you to go outside. Environmental, right? Number 2, man-caused. What are some types of man-caused issues that would cause you to shelter in place? Hazmat. Fire.
Active shooter? Yeah, really.
We're going to talk about that in just a minute, but that's one, but it's just not under man-caused, although it is man-caused. I'll give you that. So what we're talking about is hazardous material type events. We're talking about something that one of the primary ones that I worry about is a chemical spill here in the city, right? Chlorine mainly, we have the recreation center, we have the water treatment plants. Those facilities use large quantities of chlorine and other chemicals. If one of those tankers were to go down, have a puncture, something were to be released into the environment, we're going to have some type of event that may cause a localized shelter in place. It may also more likely cause an evacuation. So if you have chlorine, it's heavier than air, it's gonna flow downhill, we would probably tell you to evacuate, not shelter in place. But if you're on the uphill side or the wind direction isn't such, we would tell you to shelter in place, not go outside to be potentially exposed. Does that make sense? Shelter in place basically means you go into your domicile and you seal it up depending on the circumstance, right? If it's a chemical spill and you can't evacuate, you would try and seal the doors and the windows and all of that good stuff. More than likely you're gonna evacuate. But if it's a weather-related situation, you're gonna do what we've talked about. You're gonna seal up the house, you're gonna consolidate your living space, you're going to go into that full battle rattle to protect yourself from the cold, from the elements, right? Crime-related, what are we talking about here? You already said one of them, active shooter, right? How about this? My guys doing their job, chase a bank robbery into the middle of a subdivision at 2 in the morning, and the guy bails on foot. Happens all the time. Or the stolen car bails on foot. Or the domestic violence suspect who may or may not be armed bails on foot in the middle of a neighborhood in the middle of the night. There's lots of different ways that I can notify you of what's going on. I can knock on your door, I can do a reverse 911, I have a system called iPause, which shoots messages from the county level to your cell phones. And each one of these is a good way to distribute information, but it's not foolproof. You may also just simply see a whole bunch of red and blue lights and go, that doesn't look good. We call that a clue, and I probably shouldn't go outside and ask the cop what's going on. I probably should stay inside, shelter in place, until the red and blue lights leave, right?
So you get your machine gun out, right?
Yeah, well, no, you can't. I'm joking about that. Inside the house, yes. Don't come outside the house and try it. That would be a problem or problematic. So, crime-related, criminal activity in the area. But the point I want to make is shelter in place can mean different things to different people. If you're trying to shelter yourself from the elements, you're going to try and seal up your house, protect your environment on the inside, stay in a certain type of situation. If it's a chemical-related issue, a hazardous material spill, you may need to be careful and decide whether you're going to stay, and if you are going to stay, how do you protect your house from that type of stuff? Do you seal the doors and the windows? Do you go to that extent, or do you just bug out? How about this? Nuclear. This is one that worries me over the course of time, right? Something happens, we get a nuclear situation, that could be an act of war, it could be a hazardous material spill, it could be who knows what it is. If we have that, it's gonna be widespread, and your best bet may be to seal up your house and stay inside until that blows through. Does that make sense? Depending on the circumstances. So what do you need to shelter in place if you have an environmental situation or hazardous material spill to protect your house from the outside elements coming in?
So you have to turn off your furnace?
Could, right? So you want to stop the airflow coming in. Do you open your doors? Do you seal the doors? Do you seal those drafty windows? Do you seal the chimney flue? Do you stuff a pillow in the chimney? You need to think about those kind of things. There's all kinds of websites online that will tell you how to do things like that. The likelihood of that happening is almost nil, but it's things to make you plan for the worst and hope for the best. And if you're prepared to do that, the minor things that crop up are easy, right? If you're prepared for the worst, the minor things are easy. So, does anybody have any questions about shelter in place? I just want you to think about that. How would you protect your environment from somebody, from a threat from the outside coming in, right? So, and it may be the machine gun. I'm a Second Amendment guy, so please don't come outside with that. Stay inside. All right, that's what I have. There's a lot of information put out there. There's a lot of topics. The whole intent of tonight's presentation is to make you say, what do I need to do tomorrow to prepare for the winter situation, right? What do I need to do tomorrow? Not Sunday, not Monday, tomorrow. We need to do it now. So, other than that, does anybody have any questions, any comments?
Just
much of-
remember that couple that were on a Hawaiian Alaska cruise and the husband killed his wife because she laughed at him. That might be,
I learned, I don't ever laugh at my wife. Ever. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm afraid of my wife, so. You're right though, Janice, that was a tragic situation, but yeah, don't poke the bear. All right, folks, that's what I've got tonight. Thank you so much for being here, and we are gonna do this again in February. I don't know what the topic is. Please get the word out to your friends, your neighbors, your precinct, your district, your block captains. Once again, this size of a group is good. I'd love to get 100 people in here. It'll be online. It'll be on the website under emergency preparedness, under the training features. Features will have it up there next week, early next week. So, okay. Thank you so much. You guys have a great night.